The state of Virginia is set to cut its state corporate income tax rate from 6% to 5.75, increasing the gap between Virginia and Maryland to 2.5%. Tom, how will this affect the decision of new businesses looking at Maryland versus Virginia?
I doubt that it's going to affect it very much, actually.
They're going to choose Virginia regardless?
I doubt that either.
Okay.
Because a number of the factors involved in it, actually the tax rate, for corporate taxes is not their main consideration. Normally, I was checking through some of the studies that have been done, interviewing CEOs and what their priorities are. I found, interestingly enough, for a lot of them, it's the transportation factor that is the biggest thing. I never heard of the rule, have you, Bob, of 5 to 55?
No.
Most companies want 5 minutes to get the 55 mile an hour for their trucks getting on the highway, people coming to them. They want a place where their employees can get to it. It's really the nexus of the businesses having the right access to airports.
Well, then we ought to be
I was gonna
poised
say
for great
Washington
things.
County
Why
ought to
aren't we
be-
doing
yeah,
great things
exactly.
then?
Bob, let me ask you though, is this
Maryland
not just another nail in Maryland's business coffin?
And it's not just Virginia. You look across the river at West Virginia, what they're doing. I mean, they're growing by leaps and bounds. And I'm not just talking about residential either. I'm talking about business, Chambersburg, Greencastle, clean up to Shippensburg. Up in PA, they're growing. We're not. We're kind of like stagnant. I don't know what we're waiting on. Maybe we're waiting on the widening of I-81. But, we're waiting on something, but I just don't know what it is.
Well, if we're waiting on the widening of 81, Colin, why wouldn't Pennsylvania be waiting on that too? Because they haven't widened it in Greencastle either.
Well, 81 is, as with any Pennsylvania road, under a constant state of construction. I think there's a fair there's a fair conversation to be had here. I read an article actually just earlier today that the state of Maryland is about to have one of the largest surpluses
$295 million, right?
in its budget in history. I think it's a good idea for a state to have a rainy day fund. By the same token, if we can do more to encourage local economy, then I think that there's an argument to be made for that as well. So I think, I do think that Maryland is an attractive state to most businesses, not necessarily our area, but Maryland is a state. We do have a better transportation environment than Northern Virginia has, and all you have to do is to drive down.
Well,
there and
drive
know
through
it.
Northern Virginia. You don't want to do
We
that.
also have, one of the best educational systems in the country.
Number one.
Indeed.
And we're number 3 in the percentage of people with bachelor's degrees or better in the whole country as a state.
Right.
Which is really considerable because a lot of what companies want, the second highest, besides the transportation, from what I was reading from these studies, is the workforce. They need a trained workforce. And what usually happens is I find it very interesting, it's like the 270 corridor. The more businesses you get similar together, the bigger the work pool, because if you don't like one company,
Right,
they
you can
can
move to
hire you
another.
from another. Maryland is great for that.
Now-
and Maryland, in fact, has the highest median income in the United States of any state. So we're not
We
doing
are
so
definitely
bad.
the richest country. Or
We are the
state now,
richest.
yeah.
Well, so the one
Thank
thing
you
I would
very
say, and I would say that there is a fine balance, and I think this is something that you're pushing towards, Bob.
Yeah.
There's a fine balance between providing all those services, having the necessary amount of regulation, and not having over-regulation, which scares business away. So you want to provide a stable environment for businesses to want to operate here because they know what to expect, that they're operating in a stable environment, and they have all the support and everything else, to give incentives. And actually maybe something that we should do rather than giving tax breaks or cutting the base tax rate is to give incentive to businesses to come here in the first place.
Well, and that's one of the things that I harp on when it comes to, we talk about here in the state of Maryland about how we're not business friendly, we too many regulations, too many taxes, and then, in Washington County, the county commissioners have some leeway into reducing some things, whether it's tipping fees for. Tap-in fees for water and sewer, or whatever it is,
right,
yeah.
to entice corporations to come
here,
here. And we don't do that.
Yeah.
Okay, and so we suffer. Our people suffer. Well, I was reading a little bit today myself, and the state of Maryland actually will be paying less in unemployment tax, the businesses for their people, because we aren't filing as much as we did before. So there's going to be a cost savings there because that rate's going to come down some. Now, I don't think it's going to equal 2.25%.
No, it's
but,
not.
You know, it's I mean, and Tom, you're right. There are certain things that corporations look for. They also look for a couple other things. They look for, but you said it, education, all right? Yeah. They also look for recreation for their employees. Yes. I mean, it's important to have happy employees. Yeah. Healthcare is a big concern. You know,
and the IT infrastructure is one of the biggest.
Yes.
Today it is. For a lot of the corporations, especially the ones that we tend to get in Maryland because of our trained workforce, maybe not here in Washington County, but there's obviously things we could do in Washington County that businesses want.
Yes,
and the whole tax system, like you're saying, the corporate, just one little corner of this.
Right.
If you come to Hagerstown and we give them a property tax break, or like, didn't they give those people in West Virginia, which was it, the big one?
Yeah,
they
Procter Gamble.
Gave them
Yeah.
the property.
Oh, yeah.
So
they're going to hire 1,000 people.
Sets your corporate tax rate.
Well, and I think one of the things that we maybe don't think as a region and as a county, we don't think, we aim too low. So we really need to be attracting, we think about getting companies in to bring a bunch of jobs, but it's not really important what the jobs are as much as they are the pay levels that they're bringing in, the increase in the local economy and everything else. So if we could be attracting more of these high-end, like Tom said, IT-type organizations, which have an educated workforce, that will have expendable income, that will frequent the local businesses. And, you know, to be honest, it is attractive to be here because the cost of living is so much lower. So if you look at, you know, and there are a lot of organizations that were in the Beltway that are now moving to Martinsburg, they're moving to Falling Waters, they're moving out because
they should be moving here.
realistically, they can pay their employees the same or a little bit less, and their employees will have better standard of living because their
better
cost
quality
of
of
living
life.
is lower.
Exactly right.
And
businesses will flourish, like you said. You know, you have people will need houses and cars and clothes and groceries and all those things. So you know, that's why I claim that probably Mount Etna Farms is our biggest opportunity right now to create. You know, an environment for, especially for IT. You know, when it comes to things like cybersecurity. Right. I mean, we need to be focused as a whole community, a whole county, on developing that property and what can do. Right. Exactly.
And we have something to attract folks. So I think exactly the same thing that brought me out here as being an escapee from the suburbs is exactly the fact that we are.
So it was the suburbs and not the prison that you came from. Okay, all right.
We are clarify is the very fact that we are
most
not
recently
a suburb.
from the suburbs.
We have
before that,
we have all the services that somebody would expect from living in Montgomery County or even in Frederick County now, without being in this endless maze of development.
Sure. And traffic.
Yeah, exactly. And
and this county has, again, it's the only county in America that has the most number of state and national parks than any county in the United States of America is Washington County, Maryland. Yeah. There's a lot to be sold here.
We're going to be talking about a park later on in the show.
And plus the retail opportunities.
Yes.
I mean, we have huge retail opportunities.
Well, you know, we're going to lose some of that retail opportunity when the new outlets open up down in Montgomery County.
I'm sure of that.
Yeah, we're going to lose a lot of what we have up here in our outlets.
We've got to be planning what to do.
Yes, we already should be planning.
We should be planning what to do.
So there's research that suggests that the reduction in Maryland's corporate tax rate to 6% may actually increase the long-term corporate income tax revenue by 7.4% by building the base. Mm-hmm. Is that a valid theory?
It is a valid theory. Yes, it is. Right. It's just like annexation. Okay, you know, people who complain about property taxes don't understand that the more annexation you have, the bigger pool of money, the less everybody pays in property tax. Right. Just like health insurance, same thing when these, when they package all these health insurance plans together.
Bigger pool, less
exactly,
risk.
Exactly. So yes,
Tom,
of
you
course.
don't agree?
No, I mean that's if it attracts business, but I think the main things attracting business to Maryland are not, a 0.25% change given what it is.
Yeah, our awesome governor is probably one of the biggest reasons.
But here's the other thing. There's also research that suggests that when you take the Maryland corporate tax rate today, combined with the federal corporate income tax rate, our tax rate as a total is higher than 90% of tax jurisdictions in the world.
In the world.
But we're still, median income is the richest state in the United States.
Yeah,
And,
but you'd
we
never
are-
be able to tell
we
because
ben-
we don't
well,
have any
we
money.
benefit by
Well, how do you
being
figure that
we
out?
benefit by being on the doorstep of Washington D.C., the nation's capital.
Well, yeah, of course we do.
So,
so
you know,
here's a
location,
question.
location.
That's what I make the point I'm making is location. It's not the taxes necessarily.
But
I
it
mean,
is
there's
it is
places that
to
are
it
the
is
most
for
tax-friendly
Washington
places in the
County
country
because
is
we're on that
Wyoming.
edge of yes, people drive from D.C.
Yeah.
to Hagerstown,
Yeah.
Hagerstown to
Yeah.
D.C. But man, they don't like it in a lot of cases.
No.
Well, no,
But they
and
like
you know, look,
Maryland,
I
too.
think there's always a fair discussion to be had around tax rates. By the same token, we also have to admit that taxes are necessary, and the services that government provide are necessary. So, you know, let's not bring FDR into this because he was a Democrat, but let's talk about Eisenhower. What were the tax rates on the highest bracket of individuals during the Eisenhower administration? They were into the 80%. I never
90.
heard of Rockefellers being on the street corners begging for money.
No, I'm sure they weren't.
And
Nor
that was,
Carnegie's, nor
that was
anybody
the
else.
heyday of the American economy.
Because
actually.
because we had that kind of tax rate, but we had all of these loopholes that we could all get through them, and we changed that under Ronald Reagan, and now it's back to being what it was. And by the way, and I'm going to take the last word on this.
No, you're not because I got something else to
Yeah,
say.
too
Oh,
bad.
come on.
The North
Bob always gets the
Carolina
last word.
has a corporate tax rate of 5% and is lowering it to 4%. Bob, I will give you the last word, just because I'm that nice a guy.
I just wanted to say that even though Colin brought it up about a $295 million surplus in the state budget this year, we're still looking at a $1 billion deficit 5 years out. So let's not get too hasty in getting rid of some of that.
Gotcha.
So.
And Bob, as usual, has the last word on that. Next up on the flip side, what are the environmental and economic benefits of dredging City Park? Bob will have the first word on that when we come back. Stay tuned.